The body was discovered in a place no one was supposed to be looking. A narrow strip of land behind an old industrial warehouse, hidden from the road and swallowed by weeds, had remained untouched for years. When construction crews arrived to clear the site, they expected rusted metal and broken concrete, not a human body wrapped in plastic and time. From that moment on, nothing about the case followed the rules. At first glance, identification seemed straightforward. The clothing matched a missing person report filed 6 months earlier. A watch engraved with initials confirmed it. Even the height and build appeared consistent. Police notified the family within hours, and grief arrived faster than doubt. The system moved efficiently, confidently, as if relieved to have an answer. But one officer hesitated. The body's face was badly decomposed, yet something felt wrong. A healed fracture on the left arm did not align with medical records. Dental work showed procedures never listed in the victim's insurance history. Individually, these discrepancies were easy to dismiss. Together, they formed a quiet resistance against certainty. The autopsy forced the investigation to stop pretending. DNA tests returned a partial match, not exact, but close enough to confuse rather than clarify. The body belonged to a relative, not the missing person himself. A cousin no one had spoken to in years. A man who had drifted through cities, collecting jobs and shedding connections. That revelation cracked the case open. If the body was not the missing man, then where was he? And why had someone gone to such lengths to make the wrong death look right? As detectives retraced the missing man's life, they discovered patterns no one had noticed before. He had used multiple addresses, rotated phone numbers, and left jobs abruptly. Bank accounts had been opened and closed in different states. He lived just close enough to be known, yet distant enough to disappear without immediate alarm. Then came the sighting. A gas station clerk, 3 towns away, reported a man matching the missing person's description, live and calm, asking for directions under a different name. Surveillance footage confirmed it. The timestamp was weeks after the body had already been buried. The case shifted from mistaken identity to deliberate substitution. Investigators theorized that the body had been used as a key way to unlock disappearance, a real death to sell a fake ending. The cousin's body had not been chosen randomly. It was close enough genetically to pass early tests, distant enough to delay discovery. As pressure mounted, something unexpected happened. Evidence began disappearing. Witnesses changed statements. Reports were amended. It was subtle, procedural, almost invisible. Someone or something wanted the case to stop evolving. By the time the truth reached senior officials, the damage was done. The body had been cremated. The grave could no longer speak, and the man whose death had been accepted as fact had vanished into legal invisibility. The case was closed under a revised conclusion: identification error, no criminal intent proven. But detectives knew better. That body did more than confuse an investigation. It exposed how fragile truth becomes when systems trust appearances over certainty. One wrong assumption had rewritten a life, erased a man, and buried the truth alongside someone who never should have been there. The body was real. The identity was wrong. And everything changed because no one questioned it soon enough. In the months that followed, the case refused to stay quiet. Internal audits were launched, not because anyone expected to find misconduct, but because too many procedures had failed at once. Identification protocols had been followed perfectly, yet they had led everyone in the wrong direction. It became clear that the system was not broken, it was vulnerable. Detectives revisited old missing person files and began noticing something disturbing. Several cases had been closed after bodies were found under similar circumstances: partial matches, hurried identifications, quiet cremations. None of them had ever been reopened. Each one relied on the same assumption, that a body automatically equals the end of a life. The family of the missing man lived in a strange state of grief. They had mourned, buried, and tried to move on, only to be told that the death they accepted might not have been real. Closure was taken away and replaced with uncertainty. Was their loved one dead somewhere else, or walking freely under another name? The not knowing became its own kind of punishment. A senior investigator later admitted that the most frightening part of the case was not the deception itself, but how Azalea succeeded. No high-level hacking, no forged documents, just patience, timing, and a body close enough to convince people not to look deeper. The truth had not been hidden, it had been accepted too quickly. Whispers began to circulate about a network, not necessarily criminal in the traditional sense, but functional. People who wanted to disappear, bodies that could no longer speak for themselves, systems that preferred clean endings over complicated questions. Nothing was ever proven, but the pattern was impossible to ignore. Years later, a routine traffic stop in another state briefly reignited the case. A man provided identification that checked out perfectly: name, date of birth, social records, but an officer noticed a small scar that matched the missing man's childhood injury. Before follow-up could happen, the man was released. The record of the stop was later marked as entered in error. The case file now sits in a locked archive, thicker than most solved homicides. On its final page, someone added a handwritten line during a late-night review: "If identity can be replaced, then death can be borrowed." No signature followed. The body that started it all remains buried under the wrong name. The truth remains officially unresolved, and somewhere beyond the reach of paperwork and certainty, a man whose death changed everything continues to exist, or has disappeared yet again. Because in this case, the mistake was not finding the wrong body. The mistake was believing that a body alone could ever tell the full story.